The previous video we have already seen the basic concepts of memory system, and in this video we will discuss semiconductor RAM memories. The semiconductor RAM memories are available in a wide range of speed. Their cycle time will be range from 100 nanoseconds to 10 nanoseconds. These are first introduced in 1960. They were much more expensive when they have introduced, but later, because of the rapid growth in the advancement in the VLSI technology, the cost of the semiconductor memories has dropped dramatically, and as a result, we are using these semiconductor RAM memories nowadays in everywhere. Semiconductor RAM memories have the organization with memory chips, which has a memory cell which is responsible for holding a single bit information. We have already seen the definition of the bit in the previous video, which is the smallest value with what we can store on the computer. So each memory cell over here is going to have a 1 bit information, and we are going to, as you can see, if I show this is a 1 bit one cell which is going to hold a 1 bit information, and like that I have taken some 8 divisions. So I have shown just like 1 byte memory array here. So here this complete group, we will call it as a array, which I'm going to, memory cells are organized in the form of array, so that if they have organized in the form of array, then only we can allocate contiguous allocation, so that we can store the data together. uh, each row in the memory, which we have seen again from the previous discussion, that each row in the memory we call it as a word, and out of the address given, we are going to use part of the address to recognize the word, and the remaining bits will be used to recognize the bytes inside the word. A cell of a row are connected to common line known as word line. So each complete, it's just like array. The beginning of the array is connected to the beginning address of the array, so that if I know the starting address of the array and if I know the limit, I can get all the data inside the array. Similar to that, what we are going to do here is we are going to connect the beginning of that to a word line, and each word line, the individual word line is connected to the address decoder, so that the address decoder job is to divide the given address into two part. One is to recognize the word line, and second one is the recognize the byte inside the word line. The first whatever the address it is going to get, it has to recognize the word, then only inside that it can find the respective bytes. So for that, the word line should be connected to address decoder, and here we are having a circuit called sense or write. Sense is nothing but a read or write circuit. What is the job of this? If the control signal is for sensing, for reading, then the respective read task will be performed on the respective word line. Otherwise, if it is write, so then the given data in the MDR will be written on the respective word line. Now let's see, we will design a simple memory of 16 cross 8, where 16 words are there. To generate the 16 words address, how many address lines are required? I need 2 to the power of 4, that is equal to 16. It means 4 address lines are sufficient to address 16 words. And this word, each word over here in this discussion, we are having a 8-bit word, as I shown in the previous slide. I'm going to take a simple word which is have 8-bit in a single word, where you can notice that each word, as we have discussed in the previous, each word line is connected to address decoder, and also we are having a sense or write circuit which is going to tell read or write operation, and each cell what we are having over here is capable of storing a single bit. It means here we are using something called flip-flop. Hope you remember a term flip-flop from the subject ADE, where we are going to design a flip-flop. The job of the flip-flop is to store a single bit so information. So the same flip-flop will be used over here to store a single bit information, and collection of 8 flip-flop will make a one word line over here, and we are going to have totally 16 cross 8, it means 128 bits of data will be stored by this memory organization. This is a very simple memory organization. And here we are having two more control signals, the read or write. So which is going to tell whether it's a read operation or write operation. As I said, read can also be called as a sense, and write remains as write only. And CS stands for chip select. It's going to select a chip or it's going to select a cell. In this, which cell it has to select, because I'm having 8 cells over here, which cell I have to choose or which chip I have to choose to read the value, that is going to be given by the CS. This is a very simple architecture. We'll see the complicated architecture in the next. Let's design little bigger memory organization where we are going to discuss here 1K into 1 byte format, where to get 1K, this is what I said in the basic concepts what we require for discussion of this module. So where I have clearly told whenever we are going to give some memory of some size, how to find the number of address lines required. So I should write like 2 to the power of what will give me 1K. So it is of course 2 to the power of 10 will give me, it is 10, 2 to the power of 10 will give me 1K address. So now, so we need how many address lines? 10 address lines. So that we are going to take and we are trying to construct the 1K cross 1 byte of memory. Let's see with the example diagram rather than discussing a theory over here. Yes, this is what is the 1K cross 1 byte memory organization, where as I said we'll be having a 10 address lines. Out of 10 address lines, rather than having the memory cells serially one after another, what we are going to do over here is we are going to go with the concept of matrix. Like we'll rather than having all cells together in a big, it will form a very big line. Like if I'm going to take each word will be having 8 bits, and as like in the previous diagram whatever I have drawn like this, if you are going to draw 8 cells, this is what is the 8 cells we are having. Like this, if you are going to take, this is one word line, so word line 1. So if I'm going to write for 1024 word lines, if it starts from 0, this will become 1023. Totally it is 1024. The size of the memory will be very bigger. That's why what they are going to do is, rather than keeping the memory like this, they are going to come up with a square matrix. So how can I do this? So what we have done is 32 multiplied with 32. So now I am getting total 1024. So I can organize the memory in 32 rows and 32 columns. So I'll be getting so many cells. My intention is to get 1024 cells. So which I'm going to get with a 32 into 32 array. That is why when I'm going to choose 32 out of, see here whatever the design we are going to do, that should not demand more address lines. So now whatever I'm having 10 address lines, 10 out of 10 address lines, can I generate the address of 32 and 32? Yes. 2 to the power of 5 is 32, 2 to the power of 5 is 32. Out of 10 lines, 5 will be given for rows, 5 will be given for columns. So now I have got 1024. That is what is the thing we have written over here. That is 32 cross 32 memory cells array is given. It's a, now we can call it as a 2-dimensional array. So 32 rows are there, 32 columns are there, total cells are 1024. Now, when it comes to the address, so here we will be having a 5-bit decoder only to recognize the word line 0 to 31. I'm having word line 0 to 31 and I'm having column 0 to 31. So totally I'll be having word is nothing but a row in our square matrix, and column is nothing but a column or individual cell is nothing but a column over here. Now, if we are going to use this address decoder, in a given time, only one word line can be accessed. When it comes to a column decoder, here we don't need a column decoder because these are directly connected to the multiplexer, where the job of the multiplexer is to allow the processor to read only one column in a given time. So the multiplexer means what? Many to one. So demultiplexer is one to many. So whatever the input we are giving, it is going to be one to many. I am going to choose one column and it is having 32 lines, and I am going to choose read the data from one column, that will be many column, and it will be given as a one output line over here, because I have to choose individual column over here, as I am choosing a individual word line over here. And data input and output, which is of 1 byte I have told over here, so it will be having 8 bits of data lines. And as like before, we will be having a control signal called read write, and we will be having a chip select or cell select. So the same circuit, sense or write circuit, will be there with respect to the cell array, which is responsible for sense, means reading the respective cell, and write is responsible for writing on the respective cell. This is how we can design a 1K cross 1 byte memory. What if in the examination, if they ask for 2K, if they are asking for 4K, so how we are going to configure? It's very simple. If they are going to ask for, I'll take an example on 4K. If they have asked for 4K, what we have to do? So simple task is, already I know 2 to the power of 10 gave me 1K, right? So now 2 to the power of 11 will give me 2K, 2 to the power of 12 will give me 4K. Now I'm having 2 to the power of 12, which is going to give me 4K. So now what I have to do, rather than going with 32 cross 32, now I can go with 64 cross 64. So I'll be going with 64 cross 64. So where you have to update, you have to update this value 64 cross 64, and after that, where you have to update the number of address lines over here, that is to 12, and number of rows, that is 6-bit, and over here 30 to 1, you have to make it as 64 to 1, and this decoder also you have to make it as 6-bit decoder, and here you have to update with 6-bit column address. See, if they are going to ask for a different configuration, first you have to decide how many address lines are required. And if they ask for example, 2K, 2K will be what? 2 to the power of 11, where you cannot go with any square matrix, you can go with a like a rectangle kind of matrix. So what we can do now, number of rows can be more, or number of columns can be more. What we can do, let me take this as 64, this as 32. 64 into 32 will give me 2K. So now what I can do, I can make this rows as 6 bits, columns let it be 5. This is how we can design a different configuration for which is given in the examination. Hope this is clear to you. And next, we can see some 4 megabyte, which we can use over here. 1 minute, I'll clear this. Yeah. Now, what we can do here is, here I have taken one more 4 megabit chip, which have a 512K cross 8. It means I'm going to use now in terms of megabit. So when I'm going to use in terms of megabit, how many address lines are required? So I need total 19 address lines. So out of that, what is the configuration I can take over here? 512 cross 512 will give me 4 megabyte. So sorry, 4 megabit, which I can use, and equally to get 512K. What is 512K? 9 is for 512. K means 10. Again, it is 19 address, which directly I got, and that you have to divide over here. So 19, how we can divide here? So you can take 10 for rows, 9 for columns. Let's see RAM. RAM is a random access memory which is volatile in nature. The RAM has two broad categories, static RAM and dynamic RAM. Both are having its own nature, where static RAM is going to retain its state until the power is off. Dynamic RAM cannot retain the state even though power is on. So we need to pass a refreshing signal after frequent intervals. We'll see static RAM first. Before that, both RAMs, static and dynamic RAM, are having synchronous and asynchronous types. The synchronous and asynchronous we have seen in the second module, which is going to tell if the given circuit is a synchronous, it means it's going to work in accordance with the processor clock. If it is a asynchronous, it means it is having its own controller or clock signal generator, which is going to work with its own clock signal rather than synchronizing with the processor clock. So static RAM and dynamic RAM both comes with the synchronous and asynchronous types. Let's see the detailed discussion of static RAM. The static RAM consists a circuit which is capable of retaining their state as long as the power is applied. So we need not to refresh here. So until the power is applied over here, the static RAM keeps its state active. So to do this, we need to design a static RAM. The designing of a static RAM, which will be with the help of two transistors and with a basic flip-flop circuit, where you can notice the transistors are connected to word line and the bit. Bit is having a bit, B line is having a B and B complement. Like if it is a 0, the B complement will become 1. Here we can see two transistors invertedly connected to the implemented flip-flop, where two bits lines are connected to transistor 1 and transistor 2. Whenever we are performing a read operation, this word line is going to play a key role. And these transistors are meant for turning off and turning on the latch. Latch is the another name for flip-flop. In the read-write operation, first we'll see read operation. In order to read the state of the SRAM cell, what we have to do is we have to activate the word line, activate this word line, and which is going to close the switch T1 and T2. T1 and T2 are the transistors which acts as a switch over here, and they are going to close the switch. If the cell state is in 1, if the latch is in state 1, then the signal on the bit line will be high. The signal on this bit line from which we are going to read, which will be high, and the bit line complement will be there in the B complement. So if it is high, the other will be low. These two are complement each other so that we can perform a read-write operation. Here the sense are right, which I have already explained in the previous slide. Sense is nothing but a read or write circuit at the end of the bit lines monitors the state of B and B dash so that it can generate the output accordingly. And we'll see how the write operation is going to perform. The state of the cell is read with the help of bit lines and along with the help of word line. So we have to see the appropriate value on the bit line B and its bit line complement B dash, then activate. Once after seeing the appropriate value on the B and B dash, we have to activate the word line. In read operation, what we did, first we activated the word line, then we monitor the B and B dash. But here first we are going to see the value of the B and B dash, then we are going to activate the word line. This is going to force the cell into corresponding state, whatever the data which is there in the cell, which is going to be written with the value of B. Because now we are performing the read-write operation, first I have to place the data on lines B before I enable the latch. Once I place the data on B, line B and B dash, then what I have to do is immediately enable the latch. To enable the latch, we are going to use T1 and T2 transistors, which acts as a switch over there. And after that, immediately, once I'm going to do this, the data which is residing in the line B and B dash will be returned to the latch. This required signal on the bit line are generated by the sense or write circuit. So the read write is controlled by the sense or write circuit. The same SRAM cell can also be configured with the help of CMOS. The CMOS realization of the cell is shown in this figure, where we can see we are having a 4 transistor additionally along with the transistor 1 and transistor 2. Totally we are having 6 transistors over here. So the job of these 6 transistors are going to come up with a CMOS SRAM cell, where it is having an advantage where they are going to consume less power compared to the SRAM what we have discussed with the help of latch. This CMOS SRAM cell is going to consume a less power, and after that the static RAM can be accessed very quickly. The accessing speed of the CMOS SRAM cell is faster compared to the normal SRAM cell which is built with the help of latches or flip-flop. Access time can be in terms of nanoseconds, or these are little bit costlier to build, so these only found in the caches. Not then the SRAM cells are found only in the caches, and DRAMs will be found in the normal RAM. The static RAM, what we have seen, is too fast, but they come with a high cost transistor requirement. As we have seen, the regular static RAM can be built with the help of 2 transistors with a latch, and then another one with a CMOS cell, it will come with a 6 transistors. But these transistors makes static RAM costlier, so we need a less expensive RAM. To do that, we need a less transistor that is supported with the help of dynamic RAM. Let's see the definition of dynamic RAM. Less expensive RAMs can be implemented if simpler cells are used. However, such cells do not retain the state indefinitely. The advantage of going with static RAM is it can be there on their state indefinitely until unless the power is connected to them. But when it comes to dynamic RAM, they are not going to retain their state even though the power is connected. What we have to do is we have to refresh periodically so that the data will be resides in the dynamic RAM. The information stored in the dynamic cell in the form of the information stored in the dynamic memory cell in the form of a charge on a capacitor, and this charge can be maintained only for 10 milliseconds. Since the cells is required to store the information for a much longer time, its contents must be periodically refreshed by restoring the capacitor charge to its value. See, we can notice over here we are having a transistor and we are having a capacitor. If I want to store the value, so what I have to do is I have to pass a word line signal, and the data will be stored on the capacitor. Here we are not using a latch to store the data, we are going to use the capacitor to store the data. After the transistor is turned off, the capacitor begins discharge. This is caused by the capacitor because of its leakage resistance, and by the fact that the transistors continues to conduct a tiny amount of current measuring in picoampere after it is turned off. Hence, this information stored in the cell can be retrieved correctly only if it is read before the charge on the capacitor drops below some threshold value. During a read operation, the transistor in the selected cell is turned on. A sense amplifier connected to the bit line detects the charge in the capacitor, and it's going to read the value if it is above the threshold value. If it is not above the threshold value, it means it is not having a valid data. So we have to keep periodically refresh the data in the capacitor, periodically recharge the capacitor so that it can retain the data for a longer time. Let's see the memory organization of 2 megabytes in asynchronous DRAM. What we are going to have over here is, as like before, we'll be having a 2 megabyte, and to get 2 megabyte, how many address lines we need? We need total 21 address lines, because even in the basic concept video I have told 2 to the power of 20 is 1 megabyte. So to get 2, I need one more extra bit. So 1 megabyte into 1 megabyte plus 1 megabyte will give me 2 megabyte. So out of that, how many we are going to divide it for rows, how many we are going to divide it for columns. The first 12 lines, MSB part, first 12 lines, address lines will be given it to a row. Next 9 lines will be given it to column. So total is 21. So 12 plus 9 is 21. So why first 12 lines? Because we are going to write a circuit for 1496. It means 4K into 512 is the cell array what we are using over here. Here we cannot come up with a square matrix. What we have to do is we have to divide in a such a way that we will get a proper configuration. So now what we have done is we have given more values for rows as we have done in the previous configuration also. 1496 cross 512 and 8 is the data lines. Here we are using only 8-bit data bus. We are not using more than that. If they are asked for more data bus, then you have to change this value and you have to change the number of data lines over here. It is D0 to D7 over here. If they ask for 16-bit data bus, then you have to make it as D0 to D15 and here it will be 16. And here we are having extra lines, that is row address strobe and column address strobe. Whenever we are going to pass the address lines to the memory from the processor, what we have to do is we have to enable the row address latch, and that is done with the help of RAS, and that will be given to row decoder. Previously we had a address decoder, and after that when we have started dividing rows and columns, we got a row decoder. Row decoder is going to concentrate on the rows over here. Rows are nothing but word lines, and column decoder is going to concentrate on the columns. The combination of row and column decoder will give respective cell. That particular cell is going to be chosen by a chip select signal. Next we will see fast page mode. When the DRAM, which we have discussed in the previous, can access the content of 4K cells in the selected row and sensed, but only 8 bits are placed on the data lines, that is D0 to D7. This byte is selected by an column address, that is A to A0. A simple modification on this can make it possible to access the other bytes in the same row without having a reselect of the row. So because we can select only one byte, what we can do is something, if we are going to change on the same row, we are having many bytes. So we can select the many bytes by making a same row. Some changes. What is that changes? We can add a latch that at the output of the sense amplifier in each column. This application of the row address will load the latch corresponding to all the bits in the selected row. Then it is only necessary to apply different column addresses to place the different bytes on the data line. This latch can bring different bytes from the single row. The most useful arrangement is to transfer the bytes in a sequential order. One by one we can get these, which is achieving by the applying the consecutive sequence of column address under the control of successive column address strobe, CSA. With the help of that we can get the consecutive sequence of addresses. This scheme allows transferring a block of data at a much faster rate than can be achieved for a transfer involving a random addresses. So addressing a consecutive memory location is faster compared to addressing a random memory addresses when we have added a additional latch to this circuit. The block transfer capability, what we have discussed here, is called as a fast page mode. Fast page mode can only be achieved when we are requesting a consecutive memory locations. Next we'll see synchronous DRAM, where I have told already that synchronous means they are going to work in accordance with the clock signal of the processor. Asynchronous means they are having their own clock signal which is generated by the controller. So here the same circuit will be having a row and column address which will be divided a common address. The common address will be divided into row and column. And here, as we are aware that we have to have a refresh counter on frequent, after some frequency, it has to refresh. When it comes to asynchronous, the memory controller is responsible for generating the periodical refresh signals, but it is not a asynchronous, it is a synchronous now. So here we should have a additional circuit to tell after some periodical time. For example, if it is a 10 nanoseconds, so after 10 nanoseconds, it has to refresh the cell array so that it can retain the state back, because we are working on a DRAM, dynamic RAM. If it is a static RAM, we need not to worry about this. But dynamic RAM demands after periodical time, we have to refresh the data so that we can have the proper data. Otherwise, if the voltage which is stored inside the capacitor is not meeting the threshold, then we are losing the data. And it is going to have additional signal compared to the previous discussion, which is clock. We are going to have a clock from the processor. Directly the processor is going to control the clock of the memory. And we are having a row address strobe and column address strobe, which is going to select the respective row and respective column. Then we are having a read write sensing signals, control signals, which is going to tell the operation is read or write. And chip select is going to tell which individual chip we are going to select out of the cell array. And data lines here they have given generally, they have not specified any configuration here. This is a general diagram how it looks, synchronous DRAM. So where it's going to tell that we are having a data lines, it can be 0 to 7, it means by 1 byte or 2 byte, 0 to 15, or it can be a 0 to 31, it can be a 4 byte also. Even in the column, based on the demand, we are going to have addresses over here. If it is a 4K, then we will be having 12 address lines. If it is a 1 MB, we will be having 20 address lines. If it is a 4 MB, we will be having 22 address lines. If it is a 1 GB, we will be having 30 address lines. So based on the requirement, we are going to divide the, we are going to have the address lines here, and based on the respective cell array, we are going to divide the rows and columns. In this, we will see the timing signal for fast page mode. So in this timing diagram, for a typical burst read of length 4, we can see the burst read of length 4 SDRAM is used. First, the row address is latched under the control of RAS. It's going to decide, the first RAS is going to decide the respective row. The memory typically takes 2 or 3 clock cycles. Memory typically takes 2 or 3 clock cycles, which is mentioned over here. 2 or 3 clock cycles to activate the selected row. To activate the selected row, I have told the row here, it takes some time to activate the selected row. Then the column address is latched under the CAS. Once after this row, we are going to enable the column which is under the control of CAS. After the delay of 1 clock cycle, we can notice here, after the delay of 1 clock cycle, the first set of data bit is placed on the data line. This, see, 1 clock cycle, this is the 1 clock cycle. After this delay, first data block is placed on the data line. And here we are reading for 4 data blocks. So immediately after that, next data block, immediately after that, another data block, immediately after that, another data block. Total 4 data blocks will be passed to the processor. This is how the RAM works in a synchronous mode with respect to processor. Next, see some definitions: memory latency and memory bandwidth. The memory latency is the time taken to transfer the word of data to or from the memory. So I want to transfer the one word data to memory or from the memory to processor. That time taken to transfer that is called as a memory latency. The memory bandwidth, it is the number of bits or bytes that can be transferred in a given time. It means in 1 second, how much maximum I can send, how much bytes of data I can send, how much bits of data I can send. In the discussion, whatever I have discussed, there are 8 data lines. It means how much I can send in a given time. Maximum 8 bits I can send in a given time. What if it is a 64-bit data bus? Then the bandwidth of that is 64. It means I can send maximum 64 bits data in a given time. Next, we'll see large memories. This is with respect to static memory or dynamic memory, static RAM or dynamic RAM. The circuit will remain same. Only thing is, if it is a static RAM, it is going to keep the content for a long time. If it is a dynamic RAM, we have to keep on refreshing. Here the circuit is for 2 megabits and the word size is 32 bit. Previously we have discussed only for we have discussed 8 bit. Now we have come up with a large memory where 2 megabit into 32 address lines, 32 data lines. To get 2 mega, we have already seen 1 mega will be given by 20 lines and 21 line will give us 2 mega. And how we are going to divide the cell data lines? We'll be dividing the data lines byte by byte. So each word, if it is of 32 bit size, then it will be having a 4 bytes. So we are going to divide it into 4 bytes. So how we can do this? How we can achieve this? We can achieve this with the help of 512K memory chip. So 512 we have already seen how to design a 512K. So 512 itself take 9 and K takes 10. So 19 addresses for this. And here for each line we are having how many chips? 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are having total 16 memory chips. To do this, we need how many remaining address? So each will be having 4. Remaining 2 lines are more than sufficient for us to address individual bytes. So total 21, 19 went with the 512K, and remaining 2 went with the remaining. It's going to select a respective byte. This I have discussed a similar concept in the basic concept video, where I was getting a 32 bit address, where 30 bits are used, 30 address lines are used to recognize the word, and 2 lines are used to recognize the byte. Here also same thing, 19 lines or address lines are used to recognize the respective word, and 2 lines are used to recognize the respective byte inside that respective word. And this configuration can goes with even dynamic RAM or static RAM. So what if they ask for a higher configuration? What if the question is for design a memory for 4 mega into 32? 4 mega into 32. Here we are having 2 mega. 4 mega means what we have to do? We need to add one more address line. We need to add one more address line, which will be 22 now. So out of 22, so we are already having 512K. What we can do is change this to 1024K. 1024K into 8. So only you have to change address lines, and here it will be taking out of 19, it will make it as 20. So it is 1024K, and number of memory chips remains same, and no other modification is required. Increase the number of address bits over here, make it as A0 to A20 21, and here you will be having a 20 bit address internal lines. Here you have to change it to 1024K into 8 memory chips, and here again make it as 20 address lines, 8 bit data input, and this also should change to 1024K. What if they ask for 1 MB? So if they have asked for 1 MB, remove one address line from this, like make it as 20, so it will be A0 to A19. Then remove 2 lines out of this. So remove 2 lines out of this circuit, and rather than here 512 into 8, make it as 512 into 4 chips, and this remains as the same. That is will be having 19, but here 2-bit decoder is used. Instead of that, you have to use only 1-bit decoder, because I am using only 2 lines when it is a 1 MB. In this, we will see how to double the data rate with the help of dynamic memories. In the continuous quest for the improved performance, a faster version of HDRAM has been developed. The standard HDRAM performs all actions on the rising edge of the clock signal. A similar memory device is available which accesses the cell array in the same way, but the transfer data can be done on the both the edges of the clock. The latency of these devices is same as the normal standard SDRAM, but we can access multiple memory banks in the given time. But since they are transfer date on the both edge of the clock, their bandwidth is essentially doubled for the long burst transfer. Such devices are known as double data rate SDRAMs, DDR RAMs. We call it as DDR RAMs. To make it possible to access the data at a high enough rate, the cell array is organized in two banks. Each bank can access separately. Consecutive words of a given block are stored in a different bank. Such interleaving of words allows the simultaneous access to the two words that are transferred on a successive edges of the clock. The DDR SDR RAM and SD RAMs are most efficiently used in applications when block transfer are prevented. So these can be possible with the SIMM, that is single inline memory model, and dual inline memory model, where we are going to enforce multiple memory cell arrays on the both side of the circuit, so that we can access the both the sides in a given clock. We can increase the bandwidth of the given RAM. In a given time we can access more data. This can be possible with the current technology. Next, we will see how this memory controller is. Because we spoke about memory controller, the memory controller will be having is responsible for dividing the address. In the previous diagrams I told the processor is going to give the address, and that address is divided into rows and columns. Who is responsible for doing this? This is done with the help of memory controller. And the asynchronous chips, asynchronous RAMs will be having a memory controller which can generate its own clock signals, but synchronous will be taking an input from the processor, and based on the processor clock signals, synchronous memory controller works. Whenever the address is generated by the processor, the high order address bits are selected for a row, and low order address bits are selected for a column. The row is handled by a row address strobe, and column addresses are handled by the column address strobe. So previously, in the this first basic concept discussion, we have seen processor and the memory, but now we have introduced the memory controller in between processor and the memory, where the complete address, like if it is for 1 megabyte, 20 lines of address is generated by the processor, and out of those 20 lines, the 10 lines for column, 10 lines for rows is divided by the memory controller. And out of the 20 line address, the higher order will be given for rows and lower order will be given for column. And read write signal is a control signal which is generated by the processor, and as it is forwarded to the memory, and it is going to request for it's going to perform a request operation to the memory controller. Processor is going to make a request, and once after the task is done, if it is a read, once after the read task is done, or else if it is a write, once after the write task is done, we have seen there is something called MFC, memory function complete. The memory controller is going to tell the processor that memory function is completed when it is going to be requested. Here it's a synchronous, so that's why processor is going to give the clock, and the same clock will be transferred to the memory. If it is a asynchronous, there won't be any clock with the processor to controller, and controller will be having its own clock to memory. And for the data transmission, we don't need a controller help, because controller is responsible for only to locate the respective address in the memory bank. And once after it is located, and it's going to tell what operation read or write, and it's going to tell which chip it has to select and what is the clock. And once after it has done its task, directly it's going to the memory is going to transfer the data directly to processor rather than via memory controller, because it is not required to use memory controller. Memory controller job is to only to locate the respective address on the memory bank. And I spoke about refreshing with respect to dynamic RAM. So we'll see one example how much time it requires to perform a refreshing, and which we call it as a refresh overhead. All the dynamic memories have to be refreshed, which we have seen, because it's going to use the capacitor. The capacitor is having a leakage resistance. Because of that leakage resistance, after some periodical time, capacitor is going to lose its charge. So we have to recharge it, which can be possible with a refreshing. In older DRAMs, a typical period for refreshing all the rows was 16 milliseconds. We are going in the older DRAMs, it's going to take 16 milliseconds. In typical SDRAM, a typical period is 64 milliseconds. You can see the 16 millisecond is very less, but 64 is a little more, which is there in the typical SDRAM right now, which is available in the market. 64 millisecond. Consider a SDRAM whose cell are arranged in 8192 rows. Suppose that it takes 4 clock cycles to access each row. It means to read, it takes 4 clock cycles. Then 8124 multiplied with 4 will be 32,768. To read all the memory rows, we need total 32,768 cycles. To refresh all these rows, because we have to refresh periodically, so the periodical refreshment time has been given, and at a clock rate of 133 megahertz, this is the clock rate of refreshing, and the time needed to refresh all the rows, so that is 32,768 divided by 133 megahertz will give us 246 into 10 to the power of minus 6. It means we are going to get 246 microseconds. Thus, the refreshing process occupies in 0.246 milliseconds. It can be 246 microseconds, or it can be 0.246 milliseconds in each 64 millisecond time interval. So if it is 16, this will be a huge, but when it comes to 64 milliseconds, yeah, it can be acceptable. Therefore, the refresh overhead will be 0.246 divided by 64, which will be 0.0038, which is less than a 0.4% of the total time available for accessing a memory. So this is how the refresh overhead will be calculated. This example is taken to show how frequently we are refreshing, and if we are refreshing, whether it affects on the access. Yes, it's going to make a impact on the accessing the data, but it is not at the higher delay. It is 0.4% is a small delay which can be accepted, because computer works with a high speed. And this is the textbook I have used to explain these concepts. Thank you.